What's up, YouTube? I got the honor to train and help prepare the women's national team for the European Team Championship. Now, it was a very exciting day. It was also a challenge, but I believe we had a great time together. It was useful, hopefully effective as well. And I also hope that they can utilize a lot of the things and hopefully even everything that we worked on that day. And I actually wanted to bring all of you behind the scenes and show you a snippet of our training session, what we worked on, what we analyzed. But before I do that, I want to introduce you the Hungarian team. So let's do that first.
Let's go.
All right, board number 1, we got Zsóka Gál, younger player, huge talent, WGM, recently became an international master, 2400, great player, fantastic understanding of chess, and she has a brilliant future ahead of her in chess. She's already in the top 50, but my prediction is that she is going to crack top 10 one day in the future. Very good player. Now on board 2, we got Nomin Davademirel. This is her first time playing for the Hungarian team. She's lived here in Hungary for a long time, but this is actually her first time. She's also an international master. Her peak rating was, I think, very close to 2500 actually. Now she's hovering between like 23 and 2400, but very good player, of course, and I got to know her a little bit, and she's also a really kind person. So she's going to be a great addition to the team, and yeah, so we're super happy for her. Now on board 3, we got Petra Pup. She's also a WGM, hovering around 2300, of course, a great player. Now on board 4, we got Juliana Terbe, or we can call her Julianne, and she is a women's international master, around 2300, hovering between 22 and 2300, great positional player. And now on the last board 5, we got another younger player, Kata Karácsonyi, hovering around 2200. Of course, she also has a great future ahead of her. So awesome team. Fun fact about Kata, the last player, I used to be her coach, and now she's in the national team. I don't know if you guys see the connection here. I'm just putting it out there. I was her coach. Now she's in the team.
Daddy, chill.
Anyway, jokes aside, after me, she started working with actually good players. So that's probably the reason why she's in the team, but that's a different story. Anyways, yeah, so, and of course, we got the captain, Miklós Gajas, Grandmaster, and full circle, he used to be my coach when I was a kid. So, yeah. So that's the team. Best of luck to them. And now let me show you what we worked on together.
I will never go out not knowing I've given everything I've got. Because who am I? I am the champion. 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 I am the champion. I am the champion. I am the champion.
All right, here we go. So the topic I brought for the girls was defense, but more specifically, it was sensing the danger. Now, we looked at many different games and positions, but I want to show you 2 games and 2 positions from our training session. So the first one is a Fedoseev Saric game, and this was an online rapid game from a couple of years ago. And first things first, let's understand the situation. Let's understand what's going on and who's better and why. So in this situation, we can see that Black's position is actually quite difficult. Now, the pieces are not so good for Black. They do have potential though, but for the time being, they are not working too well. And one of the biggest problems is the d4 pawn. Like basically the d4 pawn is just falling. So black had to be creative, and black had to find a way to create some sort of a counterplay. And black did find a move, and actually it was a very, very sneaky move. Now, before I show you what happened in the game and what we analyzed, I want you to stop the video and come up with your idea. And of course, feel free to comment it. And if it's different than what we worked on or what happened in the game, feel free to share, and I'll try to come back to, and then we can have a discussion or even analysis. So knight e1, so of course e4, knight e1 was the last two moves, and black played, Saric played the move queen d5, and this is actually a great move. Again, a very, very sneaky move. So with his last move, with this queen d5, basically black is signaling that, hey, I know the position is tough, but I want to fight back. And clearly black wants to bring the queen over to the king side, where there are some attacking possibilities. Now, some of the things that we analyzed was, for instance, e3. E3 was one of the suggestions, and it does make sense, of course, but e3 is just simply not enough, because I can take. Now, there are some interesting follow-ups, such as knight g4, typical tactic here, but it's also not enough, because bishop takes d4, and instead of taking on e3, that was the idea for black, was to take on h2. Okay, this was something that we analyzed. It's super interesting, but when takes and black takes, now of course it's total shit show basically, right? Like it's fireworks everywhere. So white cannot take on g3 because of queen h4 and queen g4 checkmate is coming, but white can just simply go back to g1 and somehow white survives. Okay, so queen h4 is met by knight f3. Okay, and then I can cover the h2 square. So, but this line already shows the potential dangers and some of the crazy lines here that white has to be aware of. Now, of course, black can also just simply take back on e3, but after knight c4 and after forcing some trades, black is going to have a very, very bad time here. Now, another idea was, for instance, Joka recommended h5, which is also a very typical and very logical follow-up here, trying to create some sort of a counterplay against the king. So, the girls understood that obviously the target has to be the king here if black wants to achieve something, or if black wants to create some sort of counterplay, it has to be against the king. So h5 was a reasonable idea, of course, but after knight c4, again, the pawn on d4 is falling, and if I can force some trades, especially the queen, then black is just not going to have a good time again, and just there's basically no compensation at that point. So let's say h4, queen takes d4. If you go h3, to make the bishop terrible, I have bishop h1, and white is, I'm not saying white is winning, but close to it. So the really clever idea was queen d5 was Saric, and actually here Fedoseev, for whatever reason, either didn't understand the problem or the potential danger, or just completely underestimated. So here, queen d5 is actually really, really dangerous, because black, of course, as I said, wants to play queen h5, and all of a sudden, after bishop h3 and knight g4 and all kinds of nonsense here, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, hold up, it's not so easy. And here, because, again, either didn't understand or underestimated, Fedoseev just continued with his plan, right? And basically, Fedoseev doesn't feel like he he notices the danger and just keeps on, attacking the pawn on d4, which is of course logical, and he is rather consistent with his plan, and that's a good thing. But this is something that I also teach a ton. We do want to be consistent with our plans. We do want to follow through, but there are two reasons why we want to stay away from our original plan, let's say, right? One is because there is something significantly better, right? And it's like, oh, hey, in this position, actually, I can do better. So, you do something else. Or two, because the plan that you originally intended to do, it just simply doesn't work anymore, or you realize that, it just simply doesn't work. And this was the case here. Knight b3 just simply doesn't work. I mean, it still kind of does, but it's just not the best. Now here, instead of knight b3, white should have played f3. f3 was the critical move, covering the g4 square, and again, forcing some trades off the board. Okay, so if you go queen h5, I can play knight takes h4, knight takes e4, sorry, and again, I'm getting rid of an attacker. I'm getting rid of even more pieces. That's good for white. Now, if white pushes to e3, I can go knight e4. Okay, and again, I am forcing the trade of the knight, and the knight was on f6 was actually a really dangerous piece, because it was always like going knight g4, knight somewhere. It was really problematic piece to deal with. Okay, so bishop e5, let's say, knight takes, bishop takes, but I can now go f4. Okay, f4, and again, the pawn is falling on d4. So let's say you go queen h5, but I can just take on d4, no problem. It looks like that you can pin my bishop, and it's a problem, but after knight f3, I am completely okay. And next move, I'm going to be able to move my queen to a4, let's say, and move out of the pin, and I have no problem, and black has no real attack here against my king, and white should be winning here in this situation. So f3 was the better move. Now, there was a suggestion here by one of the girls, and it was queen b3, actually. So queen b3 is kind of like a reaction to queen d5, somewhat understanding that, that black wants to do something against our king. And then there are some really interesting lines here. Let's say black continues, queen h5, and now bishop takes d4. And now, again, this structure is quite well known, and there's so many tactical ideas here. Now, by the way, of course, after bishop takes d4, my threat is to, of course, get rid of the knight as usual. So let's say if you go bishop h3, I can take on f6, right? But now we have knight f4. Really interesting, right? Knight f4, really interesting idea, because it looks like you can't really take on f4. So again, it's a complete mess. It's a complete mess. But it looks like white can take, but white actually can, because takes, bishop takes f4, and now I have h4. Really important in between move, because when black takes, I have clutch knight f3 move, and white actually again survives. I feel like it's a bit too crazy to my liking, and obviously it's not necessary, and it's definitely not the best way to go against this or to go about this queen d5 idea. Okay, so f3 was definitely the best, controlling all the critical squares and forcing some trades here. So f3 was really important, but again, knight b3 happened, underestimating this attack. Now, of course, Ivan played queen h5, correct move. Now, white is not losing here, but white has to be extremely careful here. One bad move and it's game over, okay? And now, okay, so obviously I'm not gonna go over every single analysis that we did. We spent a lot of time here. It's a super interesting positions, and there are a lot of lines that we could talk about. I want to show you again the best move, and that was f3. F3 was probably one of the best moves, and also knight d4 is actually also reasonable. F3 again, just to control. Now this is not as good as before, but this is still reasonable. Now we've seen this motive before, so black again does knight f4. There's an even better version, because now on h2 I am falling apart and I don't even have knight f3 anymore. But okay, let's say knight d4. Now, and at this point, now white has to be extremely precise with the calculation. So knight takes d4, and now here black has so many options, right? Black has bishop e5, knight h3, bishop h3. Let's say we go bishop e5, e3, knight takes, e takes f3, queen takes f3, queen takes f3, rook takes f3. And after knight e4, sure, I'm down a pawn, you know, as black, but all of a sudden it's now, I do have the bishop pair in this open position. White has some weaknesses. I would say black has a very reasonable compensation here. Knight takes d4 was also a relatively good defense, because after bishop h3, let's say I have c6, right? And I'm trying to play c7 here. So, but again, the lines are absolutely mind-blowing here. For instance, one of the best moves was bishop f4. Now, of course, a lot of the moves, I don't even know and think that can be found over the board, to be honest. With like obviously with limited time, right, on your clock. Now here, you know, in our training session, we had all the time, somewhat of the, you know, all the time in the world kind of situation, because we were there to just analyze and understand as much as possible. But over the board, these moves are borderline impossible to find. Of course, a lot of the moves are like engine moves and top moves, and we were able to find, you know, some of them, but like over the board with limited time, it's tough. But now after bishop f4, we got c7. Okay, so again, these are the best moves here. Bishop c1, queen c1, and after knight g4, white has f3, and it's just a complete mess. You know, and typical engine evaluation at the end of the line is that, well, it's complicated, and I'm like, oh, screw you. After all this work, it's only unclear. So kind of crazy. Yeah, okay, anyway. So yeah, but okay, let's look at the game. Fedoseev played the move bishop takes d4 again now, and this is very typical even on high level, right? When you go down a bad path, it's just very difficult to stop. You're like, hey, you went down that road, and you're like, oh, this is not the right road, I should stop. And you're like, you know, it's hard to do that. It's very hard to do that, even for a top player like Fedoseev. And so he plays bishop d4, which is basically a losing move, because again of the same motive, knight f4. Brilliant move, really nice idea. Now f3 happened, and pawn takes f3, bishop takes f3, and after knight g4, all of a sudden black's pieces just arrived, right? Now all of a sudden every piece was like working really well. Okay, maybe except the rook on a8, but both bishops, both knights, the queen, even the rook on e8, they are doing a fantastic job. You know, if we go back to our original position, right, the pieces were okay. As I said, you know, they had potential, but it didn't seem as good as this position. All of a sudden, like boom, and yes, white did get a pawn, but it's just simply not enough, right? And now h4, and then queen g6, and black is actually winning in this position, because after queen c2, bishop f5, and e4, and knight e3 was also winning by Saric. Bishop e4 would have been also enough. A lot of moves are winning. Now, because it was a rapid game and because it was an online game, black managed to screw it up, and Fedoseev ended up winning. So yeah, I mean, that's That's unfortunate, but really, really well played by Saric, you know, understanding the position and creating that counterplay. And because Fedoseev didn't understand, you know, the problem and the potential danger of the position, his position, you know, fell apart very, very quickly. And then, you know, he got lucky at the end, but, you know, I guess it's part of the game. All right, so that was one of the positions. Again, like, this is a game that we could analyze, you know, for a long time. Actually, it's already, you know, 16 minutes at this point of this, you know, part of the video. And I wanted to make it longer, but there is still like so much to analyze here. And I've already, you know, cut down a lot of the lines that I originally wanted to show you, but it's just impossible. So anyway, that was one of the games, and now I want to show you another game that we worked on. So let's continue with that. All right, so the second position that I want to show you guys from our training session is this Malahov-Predojevic game from the Croatian League from 2017. So again, we're talking two very strong players, over 2,600 Grandmaster, you know, just for the context. Now, let's again understand the position, let's evaluate it, let's understand what's going on here. Now, overall, the position is balanced, okay? So it probably equal chances, but white does have some attacking possibilities, but if black can fight those off, black should be also completely fine because of the bishop pair as well. And, you know, black can also open up the position with like c5, and if black can open up, you know, the files, the diagonals for the bishops, black should also be completely fine. But as I said, white has some attacking chances here and plays rook f4 to utilize those attacking chances. And rook f4 is actually an extremely sneaky and nasty move. And basically here, Predojevic just basically blunders. Now, his move seems like a very natural move and understandable move, but he just basically doesn't understand the real threat of this rook f4. Now here, he plays f6, which is again, looks very natural, very logical, but it is just a blunder. Best move would have been rook e8, and then, you know, either c5 or f6 after. Adding rook e8 in the mix is extremely important, okay? We'll see it later why. There was another, you know, try with rook d8, when we analyzed, but after rook a f1, the position is still now gets a little bit better. The rook on d8 doesn't do as much, so it's not that great. There was a more interesting try, which was a5. Actually, Kota recommended a5 move. Actually, a5 makes sense. a5 makes sense because they want to play bishop a6, for instance, right? And so that was an interesting way to approach this. Now let's look at what happened in the game. Now f6 happened, and f6 is just a blunder. Why? Because rook g4, okay, queen h6, of course. I mean, you go queen h6 because it seems like that's the only move, and it seems like not that this is just the only move, but it also seems like a good move, right? But again, queen h6 was actually losing. The only move here was actually queen f5. Okay, so what options do I have, by the way? So I have queen h5, queen h6, and queen takes f5. So queen h5 is a no-brainer, because if you go queen h5, I can take on g7, discovered idea, game over, right? So that's easy. Now, if you play queen f5, this also seems like a blunder because queen c4, but actually queen f5 was the only move. Queen c4, king h8. Now white has a really nice tactical idea, knight g6. Okay, little, you know, chess.com puzzle rush, you know, idea here. Of course, h6, g6 is met by rook h4. Probably doesn't matter how I take, but queen takes g6 is a little bit better, and rook takes, pawn takes g6. And actually, now this is something that, sure, white should be better here, But actually, it's not that clear, not that easy to convert this endgame. Sure, white should have an advantage here, but you might think that low is like, you know, plus minus and like a big one like +2 or it's, I don't think it's not even like +1. Like white is just, of course, according to the engine, like in practice, I don't know how it looks or what would happen here, but according to the engines, it's only like, I don't know, 0.5. I don't want to get too engine-y because, you know, that's now how an actual game works, but just, you know, just so we understand the context here, it's actually a playable position. Now, of course, if you miss you know, the best move for white after queen h6, of course you go queen h6 because it's easy to see, relatively easier to see queen f5 and this knight g6, but queen h6 next move was easy to miss. Now again, you can stop the video if you want and, you know, come up with your own solution. If you got the same solution, awesome. If you have another idea, feel free to share and we can have an analysis in the comment section. Why not? Now here, fantastic move. Now, of course, the position has changed and we clearly see that the queen on h6 got a little bit questionable, and actually white has a brilliant way to take advantage of that, which was rook g3. Absolute spot on move, and it's chef's kiss. Beautiful move. So the point is, the basically I want to trap the queen with the idea that you see on the board on the screen with rook h3 and rook h5. Fantastic plan, really easy to miss as black, but we're talking 2600 grandmasters. Of course, the positions are very difficult, the analysis are even more challenging, but my point is that if these players can miss the threat, we can also miss the threat. So make sure that you at least try to understand your opponent's last move. Yeah? This is the bare minimum that we should do. Okay. And of course, like sometimes, you know, the threat is so hidden and so sneaky. It's hard to notice even for players like him. But yeah, sometimes the problem is sometimes we don't even do the bare minimum. Do the bare minimum, right? F takes c5, d takes c5, bishop c5, and now sure, I didn't get the queen, but I have beautiful attack. F6, bada bing, bada boom. I mean, it's tough. Okay, you might say that, okay, rook f7 defense, but I have a fantastic move, b4, crazy move. What's the point? Go back, queen c4. It was important to play b4 to kick the bishop away from the e3 pawn, right? So that was the point, just so we understand, b4 was important, because if you go immediately queen c4, I have bishop e3, king h1, and bishop f4. And rook g7, king h8. Now, again, these lines are absolute madness, but again, black survives here. Okay, black survives. Not just black survives. Black is actually winning in this line. Okay, g3 takes, and black is winning here, which is again mind blowing. So b4 is absolutely crazy. In the game, bishop d5 happened, but Malakov, of course, fantastic, super strong grandmaster, played the move b4 again. Really nice. Now, we understand the difference. You might say that, oh, why not rook takes g7? It's like such a logical move. Yes, it is logical, but the actual calculation just simply doesn't work, because king h8, e6, you think it's game over, but it's not, because it takes f7. I can sacrifice the queen, and I have way too much material. The point is, by adding b4 and bishop takes b4, rook takes g7 check, king h8, e6, if you do the same thing, look at this line. Now the bishop, again, well-known tactical motive. Loose pieces, unprotected pieces. In this situation, of course, it was tough to recognize, but this is why we do a lot of the puzzles, right? Not for you to get significantly better, but just to recognize these patterns a lot faster. Okay? The difference between this line and the previous line is at the end of the line, I have queen b2.
Nice.
Okay, beautiful. Now bishop d6 happened in the game, but again, it wasn't even game over. You might think, okay, now it's game over, and bishop d6 still defends because rook g3 was still needed. Rook g3 was still needed. We analyzed something like g4, but g4 is not even good anymore because rook g8, and black again survives, which is unbelievable. Okay, rook g3, fantastic. Rook takes f6, and here there are many ways to win this, but there's one really nice move that I'm a big fan of, and that's how Malakov ended the game. Beautiful. Again, you can stop the video by here just for you, just for your entertainment. If you want to find this fancy move, if you want to say rook f1, go ahead, you're winning, sure, we take those, but queen h5, and then that's it. That's all she wrote. What a game. What a game. What a finish. 26 moves. Absolute, crushing of a 26-14 player. Crazy, crazy. Why? Because black didn't understand the real threat, the real danger. Was it easy to miss? Absolutely. Are these difficult examples and positions? Yes. But again, the point is that we gotta do the work, and there is an opponent, right? There is an opponent, and the opponent does not want you to win. It is what it is, right? The opponent doesn't want you to win. And meaning the opponent will try their best, okay, to fight back, to create problems, and to win the game, right? So we have to be one step ahead. It's not easy, but it must be done. So that's it. Those are two games that we talked about. Of course, we looked at a lot of different ideas and games, and we had the whole day. I only, spent 30 minutes on these. I actually wanted to make it shorter, but the ideas were just so interesting. I wanted to share as much as possible. I hope you didn't mind that the video got a bit longer, but I think it was, the ideas and the games were super, super interesting. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this little behind the scenes, training session with me and the national team. Again, we had a great time, and we did a lot of analysis and some blitz, some Buckhouse, and the fun as well. But the training was really awesome, and we had so many good ideas, and the girls worked really hard, and yeah. So I hope they will do very well at the European Team Championship. So yeah, that's it for me. Again, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked it. And as usual, hope you learned something. So yeah, that's it. And see you in the next one. All right. Take care, guys.